Part 6 and the final part of how and why the settler colony of Israel became the vegan capital of the world. Make sure to go back and watch all previous videos to understand the relationship between the Israeli government in using animal rights as part of their official propaganda policy and how they vegan wash their crimes against Palestinians. And continue watching to understand what we should be doing as vegans to reject the exploitation of the animal rights movement by the Zionist entity and how we can fight against this vegan washing by boycotting vegan Israeli brands. First, let's talk about the claim vegan capital of the world. Who came up with it, and are there actually sources that verify this claim? Let me start by saying that this claim is absolutely false, for many reasons, but one of them is, even in the media, when they say that Israel is the vegan capital of the world, most of them actually end up referencing an article by The Independent. And in it, they say the vegan capital of the world is what proud locals dub Tel Aviv. This is just them, settlers, saying we are the vegan capital of the world. And this didn't come out of nowhere. One of the people that have been pushing this narrative is Omri Paz, the founder of the Israeli organization Vegan Friendly. So keep that in mind every time you see this logo on products. Do not buy them. And while we're at it, make sure that you're not partnering with Vegan Friendly, whether in the UK or in the US, because I'm seeing a lot of influencers doing that, and that should not happen. There are also a lot of restaurants that use their certification, and sometimes, in the UK at least, they pay them for this certification. Besides, why would you want a genocide label on your store or on your products? Another way you can debunk this claim is simply by looking at the stats. If you look on the website World Population Review, Veganism by Country in 2025, you'll see that there are at least two other countries that have higher vegan population per capita, and that is Mexico and India, both sitting at 9%. Now, I'm not really into talking about vegan populations and promoting a country as a vegan capital because I think that's ridiculous. I appreciate every vegan and I like that there are more vegans in this world, but that kind of plays into allowing countries to use this as a propaganda tool, and I'm not here for it. And just for reference, Israel has remained with the claim that they have the highest vegan percentage in the world per capita at 5%, which is the same as what Canada has. Just saying. And my favorite way to debunk that claim is simply by looking at the OECD statistics of meat consumption. I bet you Israelis don't want to look at that because Israel's ranked number 1 of poultry meat consumption, and they are ranked one of the top 5 in all other meat categories. Again, to me, this doesn't mean anything. And even if they were the top vegan country in the world with the most vegan population and the country with the least meat consumption, that doesn't mean anything, because they are morally corrupt and unethical and inhumane to other living beings, both humans and animals, in Palestine. Which brings me to my second point. During the past 2 years of the genocide in Gaza, Israel has been pretending that they care about animals by rescuing dogs, cats, donkeys, and whatnot when they find them stranded or bombed or under the rubble in Gaza. But who bombed them? Like, look at these titles. Animals from Gaza get a second chance in Israel. They are stealing animals from Gaza and putting them in Israel. Apparently because they lost all family members, because they bombed them. And another Israeli news outlet, Ynet News, has this article. Furry and feathered heroes. IDF soldiers rescue forgotten animals in Gaza. They're not forgotten. Their family has been killed by Israeli soldiers. You know why this doesn't mean anything to me? Aside from the fact that they are hurting animals in the process of genociding Palestinians, it's because Israeli Zionist vegans are literally proving the point of this entire video. They think they are morally superior because they supposedly have more vegans than anyone else in the world, including Palestinians. Here's a real life example of a comment that I saw on an Instagram post. In Bollywood, how original. In Bollywood, there are zero vegans. So yes, we are more moral than you. Peace sign, ugly Israeli flag. And there are so many other comments that echo the same sentiment. Like this one. Palestinians aren't even vegan and violate the rights of animals. Why are you wasting your time by advocating for their right? Sounds like Gary Yourofsky to me. You know who's violating the rights of animals? Israelis. Have you seen the settlers throwing cats off the roofs and throwing rocks at the dogs and literally sniping sheep and donkeys? How is this vegan? Or the viral video that came out recently of settlers attacking a Palestinian home and literally throwing lambs on the ground, beating them unconscious. all in an effort to drive Palestinians out of their land. Tell me that's vegan. Not to mention the abuse of dogs that are used in the canine unit to protect their coward soldiers from booby traps, or the dogs that are being trained to torture and rape Palestinians. But those examples are only from the past couple of years. There's a long track record of Israeli violating animal rights and torturing animals all across Palestine for decades. You can check out this post by Israel's Crimes titled Israel's History of Animal Rights Violations. Do with that what you will. Now, what I find truly concerning is that militaries around the world are actually taking the advice from the likes of PETA president, who said that they should be learning from Israel's army, and they are applying similar tactics that the IOF uses in vegan washing. The US and the UK are now starting to provide vegan options to their soldiers. In theory, that's nice, but in reality, being a soldier for an empire and a colonizing entity is not vegan. And the more that vegan organizations and vegan media publications tout this and promote it as a good thing, is really harming the animal rights movement. It is portraying it as something that it is not. It is now being used as a moral shield, and that is deeply troubling. And we should all be speaking up against this and not accepting it as part of the vegan movement. We should be presenting veganism for the true values that it's supposed to represent. That kind of explains why mainstream vegan and animal rights organizations have been dead silent about the genocide in Gaza. There's also other elements that comes to funding, but that's a really long conversation and hopefully I'll get to it next time. Now, in case you're wondering if Israel is still using the vegan capital of the world claim as part of their propaganda on social media, the answer is yes. Most recently, for this year's World Vegan Day, they posted a video on Facebook resharing a post by Ben Reebok, a British Zionist vegan with an Israeli citizenship who is named the Unapologetic Zionist Vegan Chef and who frequently highlights Israel for being so vegan friendly. In the post that Israel published on their social media, they showcase Israel's vegan scenery using appropriated Palestinian food, like hummus, falafel, and knafe, to name a few. And here's what Ben Reebok had to say as a reply to a comment by someone who asked, "Can you technically eat vegan on stolen land?" He said, "Yeah, it's tasty too." Another thing that we, as vegans, should do is reject the participation of vegan Israelis, who are representatives of the state, in international animal rights events, like the ones mentioned earlier in this video, who helped promote Israel's vegan revolution to incorporate it into its national identity and use it as a moral shield in order to become the vegan capital of the world, which ultimately presented it as a global leader in this vegan revolution. Now I'd like to conclude the series by talking about the importance of boycotting vegan Israeli brands. Israel 21C reports that the innovation industry makes up about 35% of Israel's economy. And by 2030, the alternative protein industry is expected to contribute over 2.5 billion US dollars to its economy through exports, amongst other things. However, there are some good news. First of all, it's reported that the alternative protein sector has actually suffered over 78% decline in investments since the genocide began. Now, this isn't because companies are being pro-Palestine or anything, they're just worried about their dollars, especially since many settlers are fleeing the settler colony, and many of whom expressed that they do not wish to return. Now, of course, this is a tiny population, but it still counts, because these settlers are supposed to be workers that would be creating these alternative protein products. Also, in May of 2024, 130 of Israel's top economists sent a letter to Netanyahu stating a clear and emphatic warning of the high probability that Israel's economy and society falling into a spiral of collapse. The other thing I want to mention here is that at the end of 2024, Israel 21C published an article titled, "War Makes Israeli High-Tech Firms Rethink Branding." Keep in mind that at the beginning of this year, Israel announced that it's going to be allocating a new Hasbara budget to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which was associated with Brand Israel, that is 20 times more than the one they used for the Brand Israel project 20 years earlier. So be on the lookout for new fun propaganda coming your way. Now back to the 21C article. They highlight the struggle of startup companies by saying that most of their stories started with one pillar, being part of Israeli innovation. It was very dominant in our stories because people knew about the startup nation. Now, they're facing a difficult time, and foreign companies don't want to do business with companies that are in war. They say that historically, it was advantageous for an Israeli defense company to highlight that its founders' knowledge came from their service in an IDF intel unit, or that its technology was tested in the battlefield. It may not be smart to stress that anymore. They say that they have to lower the volume on the Israel part, and that now they're highlighting the company's overseas office, limiting mention of the Israeli headquarters. Now, this is kind of good news, bad news, because they're no longer able to identify as Israeli and still gain the same type of investments and interest from foreign companies. But this means that you are more likely to purchase products from an Israeli company but is not labeled as Israeli. And that is the case with a lot of vegan brands that come from Israel. Many of them are now operating and even having headquarters in the West. Some of them are Oshi Seafood, Redefined Meat, and others. Now, if we want to follow the guidelines of the BDS movement, which I do encourage, we must think critically and strategically about who should be boycotted and why. Yes, it's true that if you can, you should be boycotting all complicit vegan Israeli companies and the products they produce. But that's just not feasible for everybody. I'm not telling you to buy Israeli vegan products. All I'm saying is educate yourself and be mindful of the vegan Israeli products that are near you. And that's not just the products that you see in your grocery stores, but also that are served in your local restaurants. If you're aware of a product that is complicit in the genocide of Palestinians, you should let that restaurant know so that they can discontinue it. And you should boycott that product and order something else. So, I'm going to encourage you to learn about the complicit Israeli vegan companies and the products that you should be boycotting by following the Vegan BDS page and the Vegans for Palestine account, which, by the way, a lot of the information that I shared in this series comes from Vegans for Palestine. And you can read a whole lot more than what I've given you by checking out the posts that they have and the article that they published about this topic, how and why Israel became the vegan capital of the world. And at the end of the day, those products are not actually necessary or essential for you to be vegan. You can live off a whole food plant based diet. There is no need for lab grown meat. Peace and free Palestine.